I assume this isn't about the AI. Before we get to today's video, I want to take a moment to talk about Patreon. That's right, we are on Patreon now, and we have a bunch of tiers with a bunch of great rewards. You can subscribe and get things like early access to all reactions, depending on your tier, depends on which reactions you get early access to. You can vote on polls exclusive to patrons that will help determine future reaction series and more. You will get to just have various choices in terms of like getting to choose future reactions I react to, getting to choose first impressions I check out, all kinds of different rewards, and possibly more coming in the future. We're still new at this. We're still figuring things out. It's a process. It's a process. But we have multiple tiers, so whatever you would be able to donate, if you're able and willing to donate, is appreciated. It helps me out, it helps the channel out, it helps us grow. It's going to help just, standardly. It's just something new to check out. Plus, if you like getting the reactions early, that's also a plus. But it is optional. If you're unable to do it, that's completely fine. All reactions will come to YouTube just a little bit later, a week later or so. So that all being said, thank you as always so much, and let's get on with today's video. And with that being said, hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Hal. This is the next movie in our monthly movie week for animation this month, and this is a donation reward for Dice. So thank you, Dice, for donating. I don't really know what this is. I know it's an anime movie. Doesn't say much of anything. And the title doesn't give me anything to work off of, too. Hal, is that like a name? I mean, I've heard of, people named Hal. H-A-L, by the way. But it's just like, within the scope and context of this, I don't know. Obviously makes me think of like HAL 9000 or whatever the specific number was, from the one movie I've never actually seen. Oh my god, I can't even think of the name of the movie right now. But it makes me think of that. And I've not really enough knowledge as to that either, because like I said, I've never seen that film. I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. But yeah, it's one of those things where this just doesn't really give me any information. Now, I've never heard of this prior to it being donated for. So I have no idea what I'm getting into. This is actually a fairly short movie, though. It's just about an hour in length, including the credits. So it's actually shorter than a lot of movies out there, which isn't an issue. I've reacted to even shorter than this, but I'm just very curious as to what this is going to be. I guess we'll just have to get into it and find out, because I just really don't know what else to say. So let's check it out, see what we have in store. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. Welcome to the Afterthoughts. We'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So this was a very fascinating movie to me, because it did not go where I was thinking it was going to go. And that was for the better. Like, you always hear about you always hear people say, like, when people bitch about like a show or something on like social media and whatnot, and say like, oh, this is what should have happened instead, or nowadays people like to make AI recreations of what they think should have happened. Like they did that with the Boys finale recently. I know on Twitter and whatnot. Um, and then you always have people coming into those kind of comments and AI bullshit things, and they'll say things along the lines of, "Yeah, it's a good thing they're writing it and not you." And that's always an interesting statement to me because it's like everybody likes to complain and bitch and moan about what they didn't like about a series or an episode or a finale or whatever. And that's fine. You're allowed to have your opinions. You're allowed to share those opinions. But, like, you have to acknowledge the fact of the matter is, like, you may know what would work better for you, but that doesn't mean that it's the better choice in the long run. Just because something didn't appeal to you in the end, just because a movie, a show, a finale, whatever, didn't appeal to you in the end, doesn't mean that it was a failure. It doesn't mean it was unsuccessful. And that doesn't mean that you would do better. You're more than likely not a screenwriter. You're more than likely not um, someone who has this level of knowledge and talent and et cetera, et cetera. Just because you could think of a way that would better appeal to yourself doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone. And it doesn't mean that it's going to just work for a number of other reasons. And so it's like whenever I see a movie or something where I'm thinking it's going to go one way, but then it goes an entirely different route, a lot of the times that's for the better. Because a lot of the times it shows that it's like, oh, they know what they're doing. Let me just let them cook. Let me not try to force my views, my opinions, my thoughts on what should happen into it. Sorry if you hear mewing or whatever. Cat is going crazy right now. She does that. But yeah. Uh, just sometimes you just have to let it happen. Because like a good portion of the early part of this movie, I was actually feeling like, I'm not sure about this. Because the entire thing, first of all, about like sending this robot like to deal with a grieving person who had just lost their partner and everything in a plane crash is already kind of fucked. But there's also aspects to it with like how that's being like executed and portrayed more so than the actual act itself, because Haru comes across, or Haru, not Haru, Hal comes across as very robotic, as very um emotionless. And throughout this year I'm thinking like, is this helping? I feel like this isn't helping. And even though they're starting to grow closer and Hal is, learning more about what it means to be human and learning more about what Kurumi would want and everything, even though they're clearly connecting a lot more and talking a lot more and she's showing him stuff, I'm thinking like, okay, it's starting to get there, but it still feels like Hal's not really there, and it's like, it feels off to me. It feels like it's just not going to help this poor girl resolve her trauma. And then the twist happens, and it recontextualizes everything in the best possible way, because it's like, oh no, Kurumi was the robot. She's exceptionally well designed to the point where it's like, no, this is actually helping Hal overcome his trauma. And we find out that Hal was acting robotic and emotionless a lot of the time because he was, it was a literal trauma response dealing with the grief of losing his partner who he had just had a huge fight with prior. Literally the last thing he said to her. the last um time they saw each other was them fighting. And so her death really like traumatized him to the point where he completely broke. It completely broke his mind. And in order to deal with that, he basically had to convince himself he was a robot in order to not have to deal with that pain. And through this, and through the Q01 being super convincing, super realistic, super like accurate to Kurumi's actual personality and everything, and it allowed him to eventually come to an understanding that he was so deep in his depression, he was so deep in his trauma that it was causing pain to others around him. And that's not to say that depression and stuff like should just, it's not saying that people should just get over their depression because of like it hurting people around them, because that's just not realistic or healthy to say. But it's it's him kind of realizing the mistakes that he made in the past through this different lens, through the lens of like, again, him thinking he's a robot. And it allows him to see that he was not always the best person. That he was violent, that he did things impulsively without asking, that he, just because of the circumstances of his life growing up, being poor, being abandoned by his parents after like they couldn't pay for the new heart that he got. It's like living on the streets and having to steal and stuff just to be able to survive. Um he became jaded by the world. He grew to hate the world, and it caused him a lot of problems. And so Kurumi was trying to help him through that, but the real Kurumi, not that the robot's not real, but you know what I mean. The human Kurumi was trying to help him through that, but they got at each other's throats and argued because of their differences in how to handle things. And, again, him doing things behind her back and being like not the best person. And so through this, he realized, through all of these experiences that he lives while going through this grief, he realizes that he needs to change and become better. We see how it affected his best friend growing up, Ryu. We see how it affected Kurumi prior to her death. We see how even the others around him, the old ladies and just everyone that we meet throughout this film, had been affected by all of this. And there were so many hints, by the way, that Kurumi was the one who was dead. Looking back at it, it's like obvious. Like the old woman who's like, "Oh, you knew Kurumi?" And it's like she recognized the button on his outfit and everything. And then again, the robot interface she had when looking at the one thing, which I thought was just because of the thing she was looking through, because she was holding it up to her eye. But no, in reality, that was just her interface. But the thing is, it's purposely vague enough to where it's like you don't really grasp that completely. And so it makes sense that you're, again, and everything you're told and everything you're shown, it's like you're made to believe that Haru is, a robot. And then, like, at the end, like, right before the, like, full reveal happens and it says it straight up, you see him start to bleed, and it's like, wait, robots can bleed? And then it's starting to turn in your head, and then they make the full reveal, and it's like, oh. And it completely changes things around. And you're thinking during a lot of this movie, there's also this romance angle, but that was never a part of this. And I'm actually kind of like happy about that too, because I've seen like, angles that have taken with like robot/human romances and stuff. And that's
all well and good, but again, that wasn't what the point of this was. It was about a young man who was dealing with excessive grief because he already lost his loved one. His girlfriend had died. And it wasn't about him falling in love again. It was about him having to learn to move on, to process that emotion in a healthy way and continue living after the death of someone so close to him. Especially because there was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of pain from the fact that, again, the last thing they said to each other was, a fight. They had a fight with each other. And so that guilt is part of what pushed him into that, mental state. And so he had to learn to, just accept life again, because, again, he just didn't feel worthy of it, and he felt like he was to blame, and so that's why he shut down so heavily. And it's really fucked. But in the end, through all of these events and through, realizing everything, seeing Ryu crying for him, his goodbye with Q01, and just everything, it makes it very clear that that he has been able to better himself and move on through it. And you see at the end the aftermath of that too. And it's really again, going back to the entire thing about there were clues everywhere. One of the biggest clues for me that I realize now is Karumi's constant surprised Pikachu face. That should have been the biggest clue, because at the very beginning when you see Q01, the robot clearly has an extremely constant surprised Pikachu face at everything around it. And so it's that should have been the biggest clue, because it makes it so obvious, but yet it just did not click in my head. Because again, we're told one thing, and we have no reason to not believe that. We have no reason to not believe that Hal is the robot. But then when you find out the opposite is true, everything clicks into place a lot smoother, and it becomes a lot better. Honestly, if this had just gone with Hal actually being the robot and everything, I don't think this movie would have been anywhere near as good. I think that if Hal was the robot, all of that was true, and in the end they did learn to love each other and move on that way or something like that, or even if Hal ended up sacrificing himself or something, I just don't think it would have worked. The twist is part of what made this good. It's part of what turned everything around and made it align together. So I really think that it was necessary to pull the rug out from under us here. But maybe that's just me. I feel like this could be a very divisive film. I feel like people could see this a lot of different ways, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think, and thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll continue with our monthly movie week tomorrow, but for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.